So this is a response video. I've been tagged by James over at Movie Mad. Great channel, go check this man out. I'm sure you already do if you've watched my channel as well. But yeah, got tagged. Thank you very much, James, for tagging me in this video. I have been on a break over September, but heading back in October, hopefully with a bit more regular content, being the horror season. But yeah, this video is essentially the question, what is your favourite genre and why? So in my channel name, I suppose it kind of sums mine up. So I like popcorn movies and I like horror movies. So I like when the two combine, that's fantastic. I like a big budget horror movie, like a big budget disaster movie like James does over there. I also like some dark horror. I like some like obscure horror. But I think overall I would have to choose horror is my main thing. Horror gets the free pass from me. I get so much more leniency towards horror movies. They could be absolutely terrible, but I'll still find some sort of enjoyment in them, 9 times out of 10. So yeah, I like big budget horrors, low budget horrors, like I say, really obscure stuff. And this whole half of my wall here behind me is horror, and this is basically popcorn movies, easy to watch movies with a few boutiques behind me in the corner here as well. So that's my answer. My answer, I suppose, a bit longer would be why do I like horror? So again, I think I've been watching a few of these response videos. I believe it was Marcus who said over at X-File 2708, who was saying that he was a bit of a black sheep in his family for liking horror. I'm kind of the same. So yeah, no one in my family really enjoys horror or watches horror at all. No one in my house here that watches horror or enjoys horror. It was only really, I think, it was like a rite of passage growing up when I was growing up. Obviously, you had the 80s horrors, which then, by the time I was becoming a teenager or getting close to a teenager, they were really well known, and there was a lot of hype about those around the schoolyard. So you always wanted to, see the latest hyped up movie that you'd heard about through the grapevine. Again, no more sort of like, phones, internet, texting, that sort of thing was going on in those days. So it was just stuff you'd heard about and you were really eager to check out. So you could get down the video rental store as soon as you could and hoped and prayed that you didn't get ID'd to try and check out the latest horror video that you had heard all about in the playground, a few days prior. So that's probably where it stems from. I used to be really into, well, I still am to some extent. I used to, in college and school and stuff like that, I studied a lot of art and craft and design stuff, photography, all that sort of things. So I was quite the arty student, maths and things like that, not so much my bag. But so I think that kind of leads me on to when I remember once I was out with my grandfather and he asked me, I must have been not even quite a teenager, maybe just about an early teen, and he knew I was into horror movies. I was always watching them, talking about them. And he asked me when we were driving along one day, he said, I don't understand. He said, what do you see in these horror films? He said, I don't get it. And I think my response to him was, I really enjoy seeing how they did it. I like to try and work out how they made those horror movies like they did. And I don't mean like in a directional or a lighting kind of issue. I mean more like with the rubber masks and the gore and the paint and everything like that. I was really interested to see, and some of them you could work out. So you could even see on the screen, like back in even VHS and very early DVDs, you could see enough clarity there to work out that's probably just a rubber mask, and that's probably like a bit of paint mixed in there for a bit of blood splatter. And I really enjoyed that. I liked the whole film as a whole, and I enjoyed the experience. I liked the darkness, the tension in there. But I also enjoyed seeing the craft and the workmanship that went into them. So yeah, that's I guess that's a slightly longer answer to why I like horror. So again, I'll just give you a few highlights of how I got into it in terms of films. So I started off probably just anything horror-wise, like your sci-fi horrors, like you get into Aliens, that sort of stuff, and it gets a bit dark. Used to pick those up on like boot sales around here, so like boot fairs. 50p sort of thing, on VHS on a Sunday, come back in Sunday afternoon and watch them for the first time. So a lot of my horror was based on me watching VHSs back on a small TV screen on VHS. And yeah, gradually it grew and grew, and then obviously I had a few close mates who were also into horror, and between us we'd have these video nights and we'd sit down, we'd all try and sort of like bring out the best thing we found or we wanted to check out, and we'd sit down together and spend the entire night just going through horror movies right into the early hours of the morning and pretty much make it through to the next day without any sleep. So yeah, great fond memories of doing this with horror. I discovered a lot of horror this way. Early movies would have been like The Evil Dead. Again, another good example where it's very dark, and you can kind of see these guys had like a really low budget to make the film, but it still managed to pack a punch for what it was trying to go for. And then Evil Dead 2 was just like that plus more fun, more humor, more kind of like gore. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And yeah, then as I was getting on and getting to my sort of like early to mid teens, I remember vividly I picked up this, I think it was a Warner Brothers box set, and it might have been from somewhere called Woolworths back in the day, and that had 3 movies set in there, and the 3 movies in there were the Lost Boys, so 80s classic horror, and this was like, it's sort of like almost 3 increments in type of horror basically in the one box set. So Lost Boys, kind of an 80s, everyone knows Lost Boys, 80s kind of Goonies almost, but with horror, where these lads, like young lads, kind of like stumble across this vampire nest. And then you've got The Interview with the Vampire with Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise and a very young Kirsten Dunst. So those 3 actors in that film, basically, I've followed them since watching that film through most of their career. So I would still watch films by any of those 3 actors today, and built up a lot of collections from those sort of 3 actors over the years. So yeah, Interview with the Vampire, and on paper, like I would never have picked that up because that one on the pictures anyway looks very costume drama-y, very old setting. Nothing that sort of like spikes my interest naturally. In fact, I try and avoid those type of things. I just know they're not generally for me. Having said that, because it was in the box set and I stuck on the DVD on, I really enjoyed it. I think the gateway into that one for me was when, if you haven't, it's mild spoilers, but it doesn't ruin the film. Mild spoilers, but it doesn't ruin the film. There's obviously an interview with a potential vampire at the start. I think Christian Slater is the guy in more of a modern day, so that helped sort of ease me into it. Like it wasn't all just like set way back in sort of like ancient times where everyone was, scared of getting the plague and such, as amongst other things. But yeah, so that was probably what helped me get into that one. And then I really enjoyed it. I watched it over and over and over again. And then the last one in that box set was the infamous Exorcist. And at the time back then, we'd heard nothing but this was the scariest movie. People were passing out in the cinemas. People were throwing up. People were like going absolutely off their heads about this film, just like absolutely terrified. Pitched as the most scariest movie you'll ever see. Now, as a teenager going into that movie with that hype around it, and with the horror that we've been watching, like Evil Dead, low budget, kind of funny, gory stuff. Even some of the sort of early 2000s movies were starting to come out, or late 90s movies by then, where like heavy CGI was being used on scenes and things. When you go back into, or you go into The Exorcist for the first time with that mindset and that surrounding, it was a big letdown for me. I'll be honest. I like watched it, and not only did it feel dated then, because it probably was for me, it didn't move very fast compared to the movies I've been watching. There wasn't very much humour in it, which I'd expected from a lot of films that I've been watching recently at that time. And I came away from it just thinking, how is this the scariest film in the world? How is this the scariest film ever made? And I think over time I've sort of realised, and as I've grown older, I've appreciated it more and more for what it is. But at the time, it was very much like, this is not the scariest thing ever made. Like, there was hardly anything in it I found that scary at all. Obviously, Reagan in there has quite a few good scenes. But yeah, it was just such a letdown for that kind of teenager going in expecting the best thing they've ever seen in their life, or the scariest thing they've ever seen in their life. So yeah, that was kind of like a bit of a shock. And then I realised, I think it was for its time, when you hadn't had all the stuff I had experienced since then, and the increase in special effects and everything that had come along since then. For its time, I'm sure it absolutely did terrify people and did, earn the title of scariest film ever made. So, and in recent years, or like in the last sort of 10 years, after rewatching it a few times, it has definitely become one of my favourites in terms of horror. I do really appreciate it for what it is. And obviously my palette in terms of films and horror especially has become a lot wider than just the specific handful that I used to really enjoy as a kid, to see which was the grossest I could find, or which one had the most kind of like blood and guts in it. So yeah, you kind of like, you mature over time, obviously, and so do your tastes, luckily. So yeah, it is definitely one of the ones I'd class as one of my favourites today. But yeah, so they are a few films that sort of like highlighted along my journey into the horror, and I guess my response to the question, what is your favourite genre and why? So yeah, horror is my favourite genre. um, really weird though, when I was thinking about this and questioning what films I really enjoyed the most, I think almost on the other end of the spectrum was a very close contender. So I think a lot of films that are like drama based films, and kind of like not quite thriller, but a lot of ones with a lot of emotion in, basically. So yeah, probably a drama. I know someone's already picked drama on the as their favourite one, but yeah, drama where there's like lots of sad moments, lots of like touching moments in the films, which make you feel kind of like something inside. That was kind of like the other option I was thinking, and I thought it's either the horror or the drama, but I kind of almost put them on two ends of the spectrum. Like there's not really a lot of horror in drama, and there's not a lot of drama always in horror, but there we go. So yeah, kind of an interesting thought went through my head. I'm a man of two extremes, it seems, but yeah, I do like everything in between. So yeah, thanks for tagging me into this video, James, and I will leave a link, if I can, in the description down below to the either playlist for everyone else's responses to this, if I can do that, or at least the main guy who started this this trend off. And now it just leaves me to pick two more people. So my picks are going to be my good pal Tim Cole over at Tim Cole on YouTube. I'll put his link in the description. I'd love to hear what your favourite genre is, pal. And I would also like Ollie as well. So I'm going to put Ollie in here as another response. I don't think you guys have been picked yet. I apologise if you have, let me know, but pretty sure these two guys haven't been picked as yet. So yeah, let me know. Obviously, no pressure, guys. If you don't want to do that, that's absolutely fine. As the main guy who started this off says, you know, no pressure to do any of these videos. But if you wish to contribute and you want to do a little bit and have your say for 5-10 minutes, feel free. But yeah, love to hear what you think if you do. So thanks for watching as always, guys, and I will be back soon with some more content, probably a lot of horror related. So yeah, thanks for watching. Cheers, guys. Bye.